Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are using that delicate doily stencil. There's also a card base die cut that goes with that as well. You buy them separately but they match. I didn't end up using that, but I did show it to you. And then I'm using a Hug and a Mug, which is the sentiment set along with the dies, and Mugs and Kisses, which is just a die set. And then the Merry Christmas one. I forgot about that. The Merry Christmas stamps and dies. Um, so I'm just going to be doing a little bit of stenciling in the background. I picked ground espresso because I'm working on craft cardstock. I had originally picked a craft background because I thought I was going to be using the die for the delicate doily, which, like I said, its intention is to be a card base. But I thought maybe I could use it, because I like stretching my supplies. I thought maybe I could use it in my background, but with the whipped cream being white, I just didn't like the way that it looked, and so I just ended up using this particular piece. But again, I'm sure I'll probably end up using that die cut for something else. So this is all I did to it. I didn't do any fancy shading or anything. I just did a really simple background. And then we are going to be coloring all of our die cuts with distress ink. So everything that I'm cutting out is going to be out of white cardstock. I told you in a previous video that I typically don't buy colored cardstock, and that's because I chose to make my investment into my distress inks. It's just, kind of picking what works for you. And if you're a person who uses colored cardstocks, then by all means, you could totally make the same card using just colored cardstocks. But I wanted to show you, in case you don't have a bunch of colored paper, that you can do it with inks. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be distress inks, because nowadays there are so many dye inks out there from various companies that you can use to do ink blending with. But I personally prefer distress inks. Plus, like I said, that's where I made my investment. I purchased them slowly but surely, and now I have almost all of them. Now they have come out with new colors that I don't have all of them, but they're certainly on my list of things to pick up. So everything, I'm just taping them down so they don't move around in my Spellbinders Platinum as I'm cutting them out. And then I'm going through, because I do use purple tape to hold them down. Sometimes it leaves a little bit of sticky behind. I'm just going in with an adhesive eraser anywhere that I can feel that it's sticky, because if you don't get this adhesive off, it will act as a mask for your inking. So we don't want to leave that on there. So before we continue on with the card, even though I'm recording this on Christmas Eve, it will be Christmas by the time you see it. So Merry Christmas. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful day. We have all kinds of things planned with our family in the next 2 days, so it's a little bit crazy. Here, I used antique linen to add just a little bit of shading to my whipped cream. Now, back in the day, if you watch my videos, I told you I used to color all of my things with distress ink. I didn't own Copics. I didn't like water-based markers and the way that they looked. And so I did, to get smooth blending, I did everything with distress inks. So traditionally what I would have done is I would have cut two of the dies, and then I would have cut one of them apart so that I could add all my shading. I didn't have time to do it that way this time. Plus, not everybody's really into cutting them apart and fitting them together back like a puzzle piece. So what I ended up doing to get the same shading on my whipped cream is I just tore little pieces of masking paper. And you could do this with a Post-it note. You could do it with like the Scotch masking tape. Is it Scotch? I think it is. I'll link it in the description. I happened to use Eclipse because I had a piece that was left over from another project that was sitting on my desk. And it doesn't have to be exact. I just kind of lined them up around that edge and then just added the shading to the bottom. These are my two cups, these are my two coffee, like the way that it's going to look. And so I did one a little bit lighter because that's how I drink my coffee, with lots of cream and sugar and, adding lots of lbs, lots of weight. And then Eric drinks his black. So I chose to make his a little bit darker. For the candy cane, there's two pieces. There's a solid piece and then a straight piece. I'm pretty sure you could decide whichever one you wanted to be red would be fine. You're still going to get a red and white stripe. I just chose to do the one that had the outline red because I knew I was going to stick it in the whipped cream. And then I made his cup red because he is a big fan of the color red. Me, not so much. I don't dislike it like I dislike purple as far as wearing it. I just don't own a ton of it. And you'd think I would because I go to the hair salons to make my hair blonder and I have blue eyes. And, traditionally people with fair skin, light hair, and light eyes look good in red, but it's just really not my color. I gravitate toward the blue. Blue's the boyfriend, which is why you'll see later my cup is blue. So in order to get a little bit of shading without having to cut them apart on the handles to push it kind of into the background, I just used, again, that piece of masking tape that I had laying around that had a straight edge, and then added my shading while the rest of my mug was masked. And I'm going to do the same thing to my blue mug as well. And these are just really quick, simple ways. This didn't take any time at all because we're choosing to color them the way that we are. It was really very, very fast, just to kind of get some color on them. This is my mug, because Blue's my boyfriend. And then I went back and forth about whether or not to add some color to the snowflake. And you'll see in just a second, like, I was going to leave it white, and then I was like, nah, because then there's no color over there. So what I ended up doing was just kind of pouncing my the foam pad, the one I use for my Salty Ocean. I just ended up kind of pouncing it over the top of it so that it was really light. And I was fine with that. Like, that worked for me as far as the design element. So yeah, as far as Christmas goes, we are trying to, because both being public servants, typically I would have had to work Christmas Eve, but I'm on maternity leave still. And so Eric is actually working Christmas Day this year. So we just have to kind of split it up amongst our two families. Plus, for those of you who have followed me for a long time, that Eric is Peanut's bonus dad. And so Nathan also has time that he spends with his dad and his dad's side of the family. So everything is just kind of super split up. So today we are celebrating during the day with Eric's side of the family, and then this evening with my side of the family, because this particular year, we alternate years, he is with his dad after 10:30 in the morning on Christmas Day. So we will do our Christmas, me, Eric, Nathan, and Caitlin, tomorrow morning before he goes to his dad's, and then I will go, we'll go to my parents' to do gifts. Mine always does theirs on Christmas morning. We've never done Christmas Eve, except for after I got divorced and on the years that I have Nathan on Christmas Eve. Here, do as I say and not as I did. So I die cut my little coffee and I colored it. Before I stamped my little, it's adorable. They have a bunch of them. There's a snowflake one and a heart. How when they're pouring your fancy coffee at fancy places, i.e. Starbucks, because I don't even know if Starbucks does this. Does Starbucks do this? I don't know. I don't go to fancy coffee houses. I drink Dunkin' Donuts, y'all. That's where I'm at. But anywho, they're adorable in this little set. And I should have stamped it and then die cut it, but I didn't. Just because I was in the groove of coloring all the things. So I ended up having to do it after the fact. I switched my Misties because that particular Misty has adhesive on the background that I have used for full coverage background stamps. And so I just stuck it into the adhesive. So in case you do what I did instead of doing what I say, that is how I ended up being able to make that work and not having to re-die cut the whole thing. As far as the sentiment goes, I switched it up a little bit. So I thought that this little Mugs and Kisses was totally adorable. Um, but I wanted it to be a Christmas card because it's Christmas Day. I'm sharing this video on Christmas Day. And so I cut them apart. And so the sentiment, instead of saying Mugs and Kisses, is going to say Mugs, Kisses, and Merry Christmas. Again, just kind of stretching those supplies because that's what I like to do. I like to get the most bang for my buck. And if I can help you do that too, then I'm here for it. So, yeah, going to my parents. My mom, God love her. My mom is like everybody has to be at her house all day for Christmas. Um, and like the boys sometimes leave and like go home to let the dogs out. But it's really like an all day kind of extravaganza. She cooks all day long. We do biscuits and gravy for breakfast. That's just what we always do. Um, Including chocolate gravy, like because my grandparents are from the South and that's how my mom was raised, and chocolate gravy is delicious. And I know a lot of people hear that and think it's disgusting and it sounds gross, but it really is very, very yummy. It is not a traditional gravy, it's like cocoa powder and I think a little bit of sugar and butter to like make it smooth. I don't know the recipe, but Eric told me that I had to get it before my mother goes to heaven. Otherwise, he'll be mad at me. To which I told him Michelle knows it. My oldest sister knows the recipe. Here, I wanted to, and you could cut these off. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, you don't have to do what I'm doing here. But I didn't know how much of the spoon that I was wanted to see. Um, and so I just made a little slit in the cup and slid the spoon in and then kind of like tested it with my coffee. I did end up having to kind of readjust it. So I just scooted it up in the back. But I wanted it to look like the spoon was sitting in the mug. And since they're die cuts, the only way to do that is to actually put the spoon in the mug. And then I glued the little coffee on top of it. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the candy cane and the whipped cream for Eric's mug. He will drink peppermint hot chocolate or whatever. I will not. I'm not really a big fan of mint, quite honestly. Like a lot of people love mint chocolate chip ice cream, or they have like those peppermint mocha lattes, and those are not for me. I'm a caramel girl. If I'm going to get a flavor, it's going to be caramel. But I typically don't get a flavor. Even like the coffee creamers that they have all kinds of different things that they come out with around the holiday season or even just anytime. They just taste super fake to me and I don't like them. So if I can't get my Dunkin' Donuts creamer, I know I'm an addict. If I can't get my Dunkin' Donuts creamer, then I would prefer half and half. And if I can't get just plain half and half, then I'll do milk. Like it's that I dislike the fake creamer flavors that much. But some people totally love them and that's all they drink. So what are your like what do you guys do on Christmas morning? What are your traditions? Like I told you, like we all go to my parents and then we stay for dinner. Like we do breakfast and then like if there's clothes that were purchased, there's a fashion show. You know, my parents had 3 daughters. So there's a fashion show that goes on. And then what do we do from there? Well, before I had kids, I would nap. But now I have the children's and there will be no napping. There will be no sleeping. Oh, quick note. Several of you had left some suggestions on my YouTube about Caitlin's fussiness, which is very sweet, and I totally appreciate the love and support and trying to fix the problem. I think it's just general baby fussiness, because she's not holding a candle to the way Peanut was, and he was colicky. I think she's just, you know, generally during the later evening hours is her harder time for some reason or another. But even then, even like this past week has not been as bad as the previous week. And I know they say like they're 6 weeks is like the peak of their fussiness. So hopefully the worst of it is behind us and we're moving on. Not that she's never gonna like cry again. Obviously she will, but it was just a very long week. And I happened to be doing voiceovers that week, so you guys got to hear all about it. For putting the card together, I knew I wanted to pop them up, and the easiest way to do that is to pre-adhere everything. So the blue mug is on top. I glued that down to the red mug, and then I glued the Christmas to that, and along with the Mary, so that I could just flip the whole piece over and put my foam tape on all of it. First of all, it's going to make it more sturdy because all of them are stuck together with the foam tape. But then it also just makes it easier to apply it. You don't have to cut as such small pieces because it's just a bigger piece in general. And I find that works much better for me. There are still some small pieces because obviously like the spoon sticking out or the mug handles, but not as small. Speaking of small pieces with the foam tape, if you have smaller pieces and you have trouble getting the backer off, stick your fingernail in the middle of it and it will cause the side of the backing tape to kind of lift up, and then it'll be easier to remove. And then I used really teeny tiny pieces for the rest of my sentiment. I'm not usually a fan of doing this, but I wanted it to all be the same level. So sometimes you just got to do what you got to do for your card design, people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So this was a super quick, easy card. I hope that it gave you, some kind of ideas for other mediums that you can use to color, because not all of us have the latest, greatest things, and Distress ink has been around for ever. I mean, it's at this point, it was just coming out when I got into card making, and that was like 13, 14 years ago. But like I said before, any inks that you have will work as long as you can ink blend with them. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you have a blessed and wonderful Merry Christmas, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.